What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Let's move on to our mailbag. Hey, Jason, can you discuss how you would suggest defending a team like Denver? You always mention about how fluent and unstoppable Denver's offense is. But if you had to strategize a defensive game plan for Denver, how would you do that? Awesome job on the show. I always enjoy your basketball knowledge, best in the business. Thank you so much for the kind words. So here's the deal. As you mentioned, not really a good option. And most of it has to do with personnel too. Like if you are a team that has, really, really bad perimeter defense and really, really bad, don't have the quality of help defender, or I shouldn't say help defender, post defender to really match up with Nikola Jokic, you might have to be just really sharp in your double teaming and rotations, right? But if you have ball personnel in the post and on the perimeter, it might reflect differently. In the event, let's just say that I have an average NBA defense. I'll just pick a particular matchup, for example. Let's say the Golden State Warriors. If I was coaching the Warriors and I was trying to get stops against the Denver Nuggets, what I would do is I would try as often as possible to make Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray score. Now, here's the thing. They will do it sometimes. They did it last night in large doses. The Boston game, the game in Boston where Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic just made shot after shot after shot after shot. But in my opinion, your best chance to beat Denver is Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray hopefully fatiguing at some point and starting to miss shots, because tough shot making is all about leg strength and getting lift in physicality, right? And so in my opinion, I would rather, there's two specific reasons why I would rather try to defend Murray and Jokic one-on-one and two-on-two versus sending multiple defenders. One, fatigue, like I just mentioned, wear them out, hopefully they miss shots. But two, it keeps the other three players out of rhythm. So if for whatever reason the ball does end up in a Michael Porter Jr.'s hand in a transition three situation, or the ball does end up in post up of Aaron Gordon on a random possession here or there, maybe just because they haven't touched the ball as much in that particular game as they usually do, they won't be as confident, as in rhythm as they usually are. And again, that strategy that the strategy that I'm pitching, which is basically defending them 2-on-2 and 1-on-1 and just forcing them to make tough shots, teams have tried that against Denver and it doesn't work. So I'm not trying to sit here and act like I've solved Denver, but if I was a coach thinking about it from the standpoint of what strategy I would want to implement over the course of a playoff series, I would try to leave them on an island as much as possible. But there's another side to that. I also am a big believer in disguising coverages, flipping coverages, trying to disrupt rhythm just by keeping them off balance. So I would probably do a good amount of 2-on-2, 1-on-1 coverage, but I probably would have Looney on the ball with Draymond roaming on the back line sometimes, ignoring Aaron Gordon to offer more help. Jokic was killing Looney with the chicken wing drop step in that game. And it's like, he needs to be chicken wing drop stepping right into Draymond Green, just like they're ready, physical, trying to get a deflection, something like that, right? I throw zone looks at him. I would do all sorts of things. And randomly blitz Jamal Murray 5 times a game. You just try to find ways to kind of just keep them off balance a little bit. But the primary coverage that I would go with is a 2-on-2 or a 1-on-1 with my best on-ball defender on Jamal chasing over the top and with my most physical post defender on Nikola Jokic, and just be like, okay, yeah, that's a really tough shot you hit. Got to keep making them. But again, I'm not trying to pretend like that's going to work. Hi, Jason. Big fan of your show. Keep up the work. We all know that Jokic is by far the best player in the world today, and maybe has been for 2+ years. But how does this version of Jokic compare to the best versions of other great players in the last 10 to 15 years? Hard to pick him over prime LeBron, who would beat him in most categories apart from half-court offense. But do you think this version of Jokic is better than any version of KD and Steph? I think this version of Jokic is much better than KD and Steph. To put it simply, KD and Steph, neither of them ever had a point in time where you could definitively say they were the best player in the league. There were Kevin Durant fans during the prime of his career who thought he was better than LeBron. And a lot of those people were just people who didn't like LeBron. But and then there was Warrior fans. Warriors fans think Steph is the best player in the world and has been for, the better part of a decade. But you were not finding many people outside of the Golden State fan base that thought Steph Curry was the best player in the world. That's the difference between Nikola Jokic and those guys. I'd venture to guess if I polled 100 random NBA fans of all 30 NBA fan bases, including some casual fans that don't really have a team, I'd venture to guess more than 90% of them would say Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. That just never was the case for Steph Curry, and that just never was the case for Kevin Durant. So you have to go back to guys like LeBron, Kobe, MJ. Like here's the thing. Jokic isn't on that level because he hasn't accumulated the accomplishments yet, but he is on that trajectory. Nikola Jokic is very firmly on a GOAT level trajectory. It's just a question of whether or not he can sustain this dominance over the course of the next decade. But if he does, like if Nikola Jokic sustains his dominance, and what is he, like 26, 27 years old now? If he goes like 6 or 7 years and wins, 4 additional titles, and wins, 1 or 2 more MVPs, like he just automatically cracks into that like top 5, 6 players of NBA history, and Steph has gotten into that conversation because of his longevity and his accumulation of accolades. But again, there was never a version of Steph Curry where definitively around the league, everyone thought he was the best player in the world. Like I briefly got on that train in like 2022, but it didn't last. It's just one of those things where you gotta compliment Nikola Jokic on the dominance. The dominance is just like literally you watch him and you're like, wow, this dude's just way better than everybody. Now again, the dominance has to extend season to season to season. Like if Jokic goes into the postseason this year and gets outplayed by somebody and gets beat, that question changes. But I do think the overarching opinion of the basketball community is that Nikola Jokic is by far the best player in the world right now. Do you know why Curry has struggled to score against Denver in the last 2 years? I find it funny that KCP keeps clamping his ass up and he really isn't doing anything. So, I don't think it really, here's the thing, KCP is a really good perimeter defender. I'm not trying to undercut that, but I don't think it's any one thing that's slowing Curry down. I think it has to do with just the configuration of Denver's defense. Denver's defense has good on-ball personnel at the forward position and in the guard spot, right? Like KCP and Aaron Gordon. But the flip side of that is like their other guys, they're all just like do their job guys. So for instance, guys like Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic are really good help defenders, right? And so as long as they can stay in help, they can be a really impactful defense. But the problem is Golden State doesn't have enough off-ball offensive talent to consistently punish help. And so Steph Curry is in this predicament where Denver's defense is kind of built to slow him down because they can have KCP just ball pressure the hell out of him, be super physical off the ball, and they can trap and hedge in all of his ball screens. And there's just not enough offensive talent to make them punish them on the back line because Aaron Gordon is an excellent help defender and Michael Porter Jr. is an excellent help defender. And Nikola Jokic is really active with his hands in ball screens and is really good at reading the Golden State off-ball actions and jumping in front of them. He had a bunch of steals. I think he had 4 steals last night, right? So like, I don't blame Curry for that. I just think it's a bad matchup for the team, and it manifests in Curry offensive struggles. Next one. My man hates Taurean Prince. I had my producer, one of our producers, Paul, was complaining at me, joking about this last night. I want to be clear. I don't have any issue with Taurean Prince. I actually was really excited when the Lakers signed him this summer. I don't blame him at all for what's happened this season. This is a textbook example of a guy who, for like the better part of a half decade, was a bench player in the NBA. That's what he is. He's a bench NBA wing. And Darvin Ham has miscast him as a high minutes, in many cases, starting forward. And he just has struggled there because that's not what his place in. I want to be clear. I have no issues with Taurean Prince. By all indicators, he's a great guy, really coachable, and plays hard. He's just I talk about slotting a lot on this show, and this is like intentional poor slotting from the Lakers because they have better players than him that they can play better, higher minutes. But Taurean Prince is being slotted into a role that's kind of above what he's capable of. If you slot him properly, then all of a sudden things start to make more sense. All right, 4 more questions and then we're done. Hey, love the show and have been watching for so long that even if I don't watch the games every day, I'll still watch your show. Thank you again. Even though you don't cover the lower teams in the league, what do you think happened to Jordan Poole? His work ethic was insane, from being a terrible player his first 2 years to being a key piece in the finals run. He also led the Warriors as the number 1 when Curry was out. He can easily be the number 1. So what's up with him? I love the guy, but it's hard getting moved to the bench on the Wizards. I am so not off the Jordan Poole train yet. I think he is a really, really good combination of like speed with skill, but also audacity, which I think is actually a good thing when it comes to guards. Um, I don't think his success in Golden State was an accident. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I tweeted them out the other day because I kind of had the reason why I pulled this question is I was actually thinking about this the other day. But like for 3 straight seasons in Golden State before he went to Washington, he was like a good, efficient scorer. And you're right, like he led the units in most cases when Steph was off. There were stretches where Steph got hurt and he carried the team to being good enough to kind of float the ship. So like couple of things. I attribute it to 2 things. One, he's a young guard who just got paid. So like think about where your headspace was. Those of you guys who are older, think about where your headspace was when you were in your early 20s and your priorities and all that kind of stuff. Like he's learning how to be a pro in a lot of ways. And, you know, like I just think it's way too early to jump off that bandwagon. And the second piece of it, the Wizards are a shit show. like what if we took Jordan Poole and we dropped him in Dallas in Jaden Hardy's role? And he was like the 3rd ball handler for the Dallas Mavericks. You don't think he'd be awesome there? I think he'd be awesome there. So like part of it's just bad organization, bad team. And then another part of it is like he's got to grow up a little bit. He's got to grow up a little bit and kind of tighten up his decision making, tighten up like his overall like shot selection and just his approach to the game. And another big thing with Jordan Poole is like I think he makes things unnecessarily difficult on the floor sometimes. And so just by kind of like learning how to identify the easy ways that he can impact when leaning more into those and using his like, you know, that audacity that I was talking about more as a counter rather than as like the foundational part of his offense, I think that would go a long way to turning his slump around. I had multiple comments along this line. Pretending like a deep drop will work against Boston is pretty funny, not going to lie. I hope the Bucks try it. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the Bucks can't beat a deep drop. Of course they can. Derek White can hit pull-up threes. Jaylen Brown can hit pull-up threes. Jason Tatum can hit pull-up threes. Some Boston fans in the comments rightly pointed out that a great counter to drop coverage is a pick and pop with Kristaps Porzingis. The reason why I talked about it is because the Celtics have a tendency to occasionally go very cold. And so, like I said, if I was coaching against Boston, and by the way, I want to be clear up front. I don't think the Bucks are going to beat the Celtics in a series. I've picked Boston ever since that early stretch of the season when Milwaukee really struggled. If Boston played Milwaukee in a series tomorrow, I'd pick Boston every single time. I'm talking about that would be their best chance to play Boston into their worst tendencies. Would you be incredibly shocked if Tatum and White just missed a bunch of pull-up jump shots and Porzingis only shot 32% on pick and pop threes instead of 38% or 42% or something like that? And they had a few cold nights and all of a sudden it's a series tied at 2 and there's a game in Boston and they start 3 for 15 from 3 and all of a sudden Milwaukee's up 7 and Giannis is bullying his way to the rim. And like it's not inconceivable, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying deep drop is probably Milwaukee's best chance to play Boston into their worst tendencies, which is to settle for jump shots from the perimeter, particularly off the dribble. That's all I meant by that. That doesn't mean it's going to work. It's just their best available strategy. Whereas the Knicks and the Heat in particular, they are teams that actually kind of plays into their strengths. If you let Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson come free and clear off of screens all night, that's literally their favorite way to play. And they're not a team that can beat, you know, switching coverages and things like that because they're not great at beating guys off the dribble, right? Like that's kind of what I meant. Jalen Brunson, if you run a deep drop coverage against him, the dude's going to average 37, 38 points a game in a series because that's like his best way to play the game, right? That's all I meant by that. And Celtics fans have really struggled to differentiate the difference between like me talking about what they need to do to win the title versus criticism. Those are 2 completely different things. Like all of these teams have, like Denver is the only team that you guys will hear me talk about that I don't like really nitpick. And it's because I trust them at a different level. But like all the other 29 teams in the league, I cover them the exact same way. Here's what they're good at. Here's what they're bad at. Here's what they need to fix in order to reach their individual ceiling. That's all we're talking about with Boston. For them, it's their shot selection approach, trying to get into the paint more. And I don't want to be overarching because I know there's been a lot of Celtics fans that have not only been receptive to it, but that have also provided really good feedback in the comments that have helped me understand the team better. So like, I'm just more referring to a certain segment of Celtics fans, but I want to be clear. I'm not trying to be overly negative or undercut their title chances. I think the Celtics would beat the Bucks. I'm just literally talking about strengths and weaknesses, which is kind of the point of this show, if that makes sense. Two more. Used to love watching you and Newman hoop back in the day. Brandon Newman was my point guard, one of our 2 point guards at Arizona Christian my last year playing in college. He ended up making an All-American team the year after I left. He was kind of in and out of the lineup with injuries the year that I was there because he was coming off of an ACL tear. But Brandon Newman was the closest thing that I played with to a guy that kind of played like Chris Paul in terms of just like super methodical pick and roll play with outstanding passing ability and the ability to hit all of those like kind of in between shots. Brandon's an outstanding player. Shout out to Brandon. If you leave another comment, tell me how you know him. Last one. This is a quote from Jason. The Milwaukee Bucks will never be an elite defense, end quote. Milwaukee Bucks ranked 6th in defense since the Griffin fire. LOL, I think they're looking consistently solid on defense. That's a 15-game sample size versus tough opponents. I have said many times on the show that they're defending way better since Doc Rivers took over the head coaching job. In large part, they're just competing better. Jay Crowder and Malik Beasley are doing a better job on the perimeter than they've been getting early in the season. That said, what an elite defense is about personnel. An elite defense is like Minnesota, who has Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, like 2 top-tier perimeter on-ball defenders, and Rudy Gobert, a like top-tier rim protector. The Bucks have an elite defensive front line, but their perimeter personnel is average at best and closer to below average. What that means is they will have stretches, 10, 15 games at a time, where they defend better by defensive rating. But to me, an elite defense is about personnel. I don't think Milwaukee needs to be an elite defense to win the title, because I think they can be a transcendently elite offense. So it's not about what their ultimate ceiling is. I think this team, what they're doing right now in this ranking 6th in defense since the Adrian Griffin firing, they are building out the good defensive habits that will give them the best chance of being a good enough defense when they get to the postseason to beat the best teams in the league. But I think you're fooling yourself if you think Milwaukee's one of the best defenses in the league, just given their personnel.